So now, I would like to introduce to you our guest speaker, who you will fall in love with. Robert McDowell truly is a mystic. He's a writer. That's what he does all day. He writes. He's a poet. He is a compassionate, funny, holy man who has shared his gift in many, many Science of Mind churches, as well as Unity churches, and he is here today to bless all of us. Please welcome Robert McDowell.
Good morning. It's so wonderful to be here. I kept staring at the altar. It was Shiva's birthday a few days ago, and I kept seeing Shiva and Shakti, and I kept thinking of, I hope I can rise up to the conversation. I want to begin with a poem by William Butler Yeats, Ireland's greatest poet. It's called The Host of the Air. O'Driscoll drove with a song, the wild duck and the drake, from the tall tufted reeds of the drear Heart Lake. And he saw how the reeds grew dark at the coming of night tide, and he dreamed of the long, dim hair of Bridget, his bride. And he heard it high up in the air, a piper piping away, and never was piping so sad, and never was piping so gay. That he saw young men and young girls dance in a level place, with Bridget, his bride, among them, with a sad and a gay face. The dancers gathered around him, and many a sweet thing said. And a young man brought him red wine, and a young girl white bread. But Bridget drew him by the sleeve away from the merry band, to old men playing at cards, with a twinkling of ancient hands. So he sat and he played in a dream, and never thought of ill chance, till one bore Bridget, his bride, away to the merry dance. He bore her away in his arms, the handsomest young man there, and his neck and his breast and his arms were drowned in her long, dim hair. O'Driscoll scattered the cards and out of his dream awoke, and old men and young girls were gone like a drifting smoke. And he heard it high up in the air, a piper piping away, and never was piping so sad, and never was piping so gay. O'Driscoll, our man of the poem, is me, of course, and every single man here. And every woman is the divine manifestation of Bridget. As men, what is it we're inclined to do in a wild place? Disturb things. O'Driscoll drives the wild duck and the drake from their rest among the tall reeds. And only in O'Driscoll's mind, we only have it from his point of view, that the lake is drear or dreary. Men are often like that, aren't they? Bulls in china shops. Is it odd that he drives the birds away with a song? More often than not, isn't the feeling a song evokes in us more feminine than masculine? We're not talking about Sousa marches here, but he does drive them away with a song. But we find out pretty quickly in the poem that his song is one of loss and longing. And that's where he's going. O'Driscoll and every man, myself included. Whether we know it or not, we go into our own hearts. That's the only place we can go. Some barely get through the door, some run into many obstacles, and some go deep. And on this journey, every man seeks a feminine guide, a feminine mentor, a feminine partner. So O'Driscoll turns from the natural world he has so capably disturbed and joins a human community, a gathering of dancers. With them is his own feminine divine ideal, his enigmatic bride, Bridget. The dancers are convivial. Two bring him symbolic wine and bread, hot blood, and life itself. But Bridget swiftly removes him from this scene. It's almost as if she is saying, your transition has been too easy. You haven't yet faced it. Your fears that are rooted in your masculinity. So he joins the much less appealing band of all-male band of ancient card players. Lulled by this easy familiarity, O'Driscoll is content to play in his dream until he's shocked into action by the sudden loss of Bridget, who bolts back to the dance with the handsomest young man there. Only then does he scatter the cards and wake from his dream. Yet on doing so, what does he find? Old men and young girls were gone like a drifting smoke. You are alone with the alone, and it is his move, the poet Robert Penn Warren wrote. O'Driscoll is there, alone with Emily Dickinson's sense of a formal feeling that comes after great pain. And he heard it high up in the air, a piper piping away, and never was piping so sad, and never was piping so gay. He is there at the brink of timelessness and renewal, where he can hear the host of the air, all the men and women, past and present, with their preconditioned joy and grief, and he hears them in a new way. That's every man's task today, and every woman's too. But as we go, women and men alike, we must be so careful with our words. When a woman makes herself vulnerable, sharing a problem with her partner, what's the first thing he wants to do? Fix it. Fix. There's a word. How about the fix is in? How about I need a fix? How about I'll fix you? When a man says to a woman about any problem, let me fix it or I'll fix them, how does a woman react? With disappointment, with suspicion, with anger, resentment, all of the above, certainly with regret. What a woman wants, I've been told, over and over and over and over, is to be heard. Being heard, not herded, feels so good to the feminine. For centuries, that's been the struggle, hasn't it? The wise voices, the discriminating voices, the analytical and artistic voices, the truth-speaking voices of women have been assaulted by men with evil intentions and the indifference of sleepy men with no agendas at all. If only we could express ourselves with the simple science that forms our thoughts. Janine M. Benyus, in her book Biomimicry, Innovation Inspired by Nature, tells us that thoughts arise from a meshwork of nodes, or neurons, connected in dramatic parallelism, thousands attached to thousands attached to thousands of neurons, all of which can be harnessed to solve a problem in parallel. Even I almost get that. Benyus was describing the difference between how the brain computes, massive parallelism, and how computers operate, linear processing. But maybe it's a short stretch to see that just as democratic parallelism occurs in our bodies, allowing us to think, the same process is endlessly going on between us, woman to woman, woman to man, man to man. In fact, this may be our greatest hope as women and men experiment, finding new ways to relate to each other. The massive parallelism that takes place to create thought can also be described as democratic, any solution open to all. So let's try some new ones, shall we? It's the neurons that play together, stay together idea, says biocomputing pioneer Michael Conrad. The biggest problem women and men have is giving up and walking away from a dialogue. I know. A relationship ended for me after we'd known each other for 45 years. We'd enjoyed a lovely spring, followed by a scratchy summer. I suggested we hit a reset button and renegotiate, and she said, I don't want to. It was as simple as that. I say she walked away, and she would probably argue the opposite. The truth is, we failed to communicate. Then one of us, or both of us, gave up. Sheryl Sandberg, author of the runaway bestseller Lean In, Women, Work, and the Will to Lead, says, shutting down conversation is self-defeating and impedes progress. We need to talk and listen and debate and refute and instruct and learn and evolve. Isn't that a lovely list? Let's hear it again. We need to talk and listen and debate and refute. And I'll find it. This is so typically male. And instruct and learn and evolve, right. At which point the woman is looking at you saying, and? No, really, I heard it. I got it. But don't we empathize with this? Don't we see how much better negotiations, conversations, and results will be in the professional and personal realms if we do just what she suggests? Move negotiating from the I sharing, she says, to communal sharing. And she gives this example. I'll tell your story to the group. I'll share your accomplishments, and you'll tell mine. Group energy always opens more doors than internal energy, which helps to explain why I-focused internalizations impede gender progress. Look, I'm a man who believes that men are on this earth to serve women. Now, of course, they perform other tasks, like making money, supporting the beer industry, and watching football. I'm kidding. But a man's greatest achievement is not finishing high in the boardroom. It's collaborating with and cheerleading and partnering with women. So how do we go about it? Here is another great tip from Sheryl Sandberg. Communication works best when we combine appropriateness with authenticity, finding that sweet spot where opinions are not brutally honest, but delicately honest. That sweet spot. As an old baseball player, I know what the sweet spot is. And it's a wonderful way to think of communication. I think back on my 45-year off and on again relationship, and I realized that, we probably hit the sweet spot about 3 times. And that's sad. That's terribly sad. Finding the sweet spot between constructive, harsh criticism, or harsh criticism, constructive criticism, delicate criticism. That's the point. So, I have a suggestion. Men, spend the rest of this day really thinking about every interaction you have with a woman. Every single one. All through the whole day. Think about it. Try to be present in each of those moments. You may find a tremendous something. Something will happen. Something. Giving yourself to another, Placing their needs above yours allows you to reach a higher level of existence that brings a major shift of consciousness. I wish I'd said that, but that's Joseph Campbell. This is a poem I wrote called "A Man and Woman Stand Alone in the Street." The street is empty. No human or animal appears, even the birds are absent. They say to each other, "What are we doing here? Where is everybody?" Lawn sprinklers erupt. Automatic, the woman says, like most of our thoughts, actions without meaning, actions while asleep. And consequences, the man murmurs. Oh yes, she agrees, always results. So what will we do now, the man asks. Walk, I guess, the woman says. They slow down at the edge of town, listening to the ruckus over the hill. What do you think? Machinery? No, she says, it's people. A lot of people. Hear it now? Sounds like marching. Sounds like weeping, yelling, singing. Let's go, she says. Why? Because we're needed. Because we have to. I've been told that this poem presents a rather ominous post-apocalyptic world, and I suppose it does. In the poem, the woman and man are partnered. They're together. Their dynamic also includes the woman as the leader. She is the one who perceives the need to go towards the chaos, the darkness. She's Persephone, fearlessly venturing into the underworld where remaking the world begins. The man, who just as soon could be going, asks, why do we want to do this? Because we're needed, the woman says, because we have to. She speaks communally. She does not say, because I'm needed, because I have to. She uses the communal we, and in that word is all the difference. When men have fully waked to unity, and each to each is linked in conscious love, then will a new and different race of men appear. That's Ernest and Fenwick Holmes in the epic poem that they wrote together, The Voice Celestial. Finally, here's a poem of the New Paradigm by Dr. Rama Mani, an Indian national living in France, a poet and transformational thought leader I believe you would enjoy getting to know. I certainly have. It's called The World Beside Our Own. When you stand on a mountaintop or in a wide open field where the wind tugs at your hair and whispers wildly in your ears, have you ever turned your head swiftly and suddenly and caught a fleeting glimpse of the world beside this one? I know you have, so have I. I've held it long in my inner eye after it vanished from sight. I've pondered hard its otherworldly ways, and the stranger they seem to what we do here to each other and to ourselves, the surer I've known it's not at all beyond our ken to rebuild our world in the image of the one beside our own. And at that place, that is where we see each other as we truly are. And as the great poet and Trappist monk Thomas Merton said, what would you do in that moment? I suppose we would fall down and worship one another. Let us close with the affirmation. If everyone would stand up and join hands. I join hands with my beloveds. I let timelessness blossom in me. I take the hills as effortlessly as I cross a room. I gather with others at the celestial gate. I turn the key. Thank you.